And greetings. Happy, Wednesday. I'm Steve Deace, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm in Dallas for the rest of the week. I have a couple of events coming up here in Dallas with Liberty pastors tonight and Friday night. So hopefully, I already met a couple of you at breakfast this morning, so hopefully I get a chance to meet more of you that are here for that event while I'm here this week. Todd and Aaron are back there. Still in the comfy confines of the posh studio the Blaze built for us there a couple of years ago. We are still brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you have been struggling with chronic pain for what seems like forever and you've just determined that this is my lot in life and it will never get better, that might be true. I mean, we do die. I checked the death rate again just before we went on the air. It's still 100%, So, I mean, these bodies don't get younger the older we get. But it also may be a little premature for you to give up. In fact, over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor, and over 70% of them saw such good results. They stuck with this drug-free supplement that goes after the inflammation in your joints. That's the likely cause of your chronic pain for the long term. So if you want to try it, why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain in just 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. Again, what's it called? What kind of gamble is it if it's just $20? Why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain in 3 weeks or less for just $20 at relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. We will be joined by the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation in the final segment of the program. We'll start playing buy, sell, or hold at the bottom of this hour. We'll get through as many of those as we can. And then what remains, we will attack in today's overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. But let's get it rolling, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Good News. One of Hamas's top political leaders was killed last night in Iran. Ismail Haniyeh was in Iran for the swearing-in ceremonies for that country's new president. Iran is blaming Israel, and Ayatollah Khamenei vowed revenge. Back at home, Kamala spoke in Atlanta, Georgia last night to a packed arena.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far.
Whoops, wrong clip.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
The event was headlined by rapper, singer, degenerate Megan Thee Stallion, by the way. Paul Dans has stepped down as head of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. Project 2025 basically exists to solve the main problem of the last Trump administration, hiring and keeping competent, loyal, conservative leaders to serve within a Trump administration. Naturally, Trump campaign managers Chris LaSavita and Susie Wiles issued a statement yesterday saying, quote, reports of Project 2025's demise would be greatly welcomed and should serve as notice to anyone or any group trying to misrepresent their influence with President Trump and his campaign. It will not end well for you. More from Donald Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham.
What are your pronouns?
I don't want pronouns. I don't want pronouns.
So you're fluid? What is that?
Nobody even knows what that means. Ask her to describe exactly what that means.
Well, what is that? Why are people
Nobody
doing
knows.
That? Well, what is that?
Because they're going crazy, all right? We have to bring our country back to sanity. So I say this about the Republican Party. It's a party now based on common sense, okay? We're conservative, I don't know. Conservative, we're everything. But we're based on common sense. We want borders, we want low taxes, we want good education, we want to be able to buy a house, we want the American dream for our children. I want the American dream. I want my children to say, man, this is great. You don't even hear about the American dream anymore. You heard about it 4 years ago.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, you know who could help you follow through with those priorities? Project 2025.
您知道谁可以帮助您完成这些优先事项吗？项目2025.
More from yesterday's Senate hearing with Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe. Check out this line of questioning from Senator Ted Cruz.
Just after the shooting, Secret Service put out an official statement from your spokesperson that says there's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources and that those were rebuffed. This is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capabilities as part of the increased campaign travel tempo. You've had 2 weeks. You had a spokesperson put something out that is false on its face. By the way, did you approve this statement when it went out?
I don't know if I did or didn't, Senator.
Has this spokesperson, is he still employed? Does he still have a job?
He is still employed, Senator.
So he lied on behalf of the Secret Service. He still has a job. Did your predecessor, the former director, does she approve this statement?
Senator, our comms team, they send out statements. They do deconflict them and they put them out.
Did she approve this statement?
I don't know if she did or did not.
So let me tell you what I believe. I believe that the Secret Service leadership made a political decision to deny these requests. And I think the Biden administration has been suffused with partisan politics. Did the same person who denied the request for additional security to President Trump also repeatedly deny the request for security to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was murdered by an assassin and whose uncle was murdered by an assassin? Did the same person make that decision?
Senator, what I will tell you is that Secret Service agents are not political.
Okay. And finally, it's time to ask the question. Was the Industrial Revolution a mistake?
Gosh, I'm out of breath. We made it. Woo! I don't know how to woo very good. That's fair. All right, let's go.
Let me show you how to game, bro, okay? Oh, come on, come on. Oh, let's go!
Are you serious? Come on, man. I hate this game.
Take notes, baby. Oh, man, you guys suck. Bro, you look like the back of the
For those of you listening, what we're watching here is a commercial, an announcement for a new tech product called friend.com. What you're seeing in this video is a series of people in this commercial interacting with a little medallion hanging around their neck that interfaces with their phone, and they're treating it like it's another human being, their friend.
Really nice up here. How'd you find this place?
I don't know. I just kind of like to come up here to be by myself. I've never brought anybody else. I mean, besides her.
She goes everywhere with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I must be doing something right then.
I guess so.
We have to go back, Kate. We have to go back!
And that's what happened while we were away.
Wow. Wow. Aaron's montage brought to you by a gift that you really need right now. A gift for you. Because whether you are in the Midwest, where Todd and Aaron is, or are, and it's going to be about 96 there today, or you're down here in Dallas where I am, and it's going to be 106 here today, Miracle Made sheets are exactly what you are looking for. They use silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, which helps with what's called thermoregulating. What does that mean? It means you sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. And they came on board the show last year, right in the midst of one of the worst heat waves we had in Iowa ever. And I couldn't believe how well they performed. I've told you before, last year, despite that heat wave, was the first summer ever in our home, and we've lived there now for 18 years, that I didn't have to turn the ceiling fans on in the master bedroom at night to augment the AC to sleep better. That's how good these sheets are. You can try them right now at trymiracle.com/dace, because they're also very comfy. trymiracle.com/dace. If you order there today, you can save over 40%. And if you use the promo code DACE at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. And Miracle is so confident in this product, as they should be, that it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. All right? trymiracle.com/dace is where you want to go. trymiracle.com/dace and use the promo code DACE, DEACE. All right, 2 things from Aaron's montage that, guys, I want to discuss. We'll get into... I've done some mild research and checking around on this Project 2025 mess. And this thing is such inside baseball that it shouldn't matter. And the only reason it matters is Trump and his team keep talking about it. But I know I've gotten a ton of questions about it. I'll try to get to some of those a little bit later on in this segment if we have time. But because I think the far more pressing matter is this question. An excellent job by my former boss, Ted Cruz, there in that cross-examination of the acting Secret Service director. Here's a question I would like to pose to lead off the conversation today. If the government was actively attempting to, or permit thereof, the assassination of Donald Trump by a so-called crazed lone gunman. Excuse me. If they were purposefully doing this, like they had either purposefully groomed him or they were purposefully permitting him and looking the other way, how would the government, gentlemen, behave any differently than it is right now? That's my question. How would it behave any differently than it is now?
It wouldn't. You're, of course, absolutely right, as is Ted Cruz. The only problem is your analysis about the inside baseball in 2025 somehow is applying to this as well. And that's the bubble we need to pop. America has managed to move on to utter nonsense. And this is just like minutia and details and dotting I's and crossing T's. That's what needs to be popped. And it's not going to happen with Donald Trump talking to just the usual suspects on Fox News.
I
will say that clip that Aaron played is some of the best messaging that he has done this entire campaign so far.
You're absolutely right.
That's exactly the right message, and he needs to use the word "we" way more often in general in his communication. But anyway, continue.
He doesn't need to tell it to the Fox News audience who are all going to vote for him anyways. His worst messaging that you just got laid out, talking about stuff that he shouldn't be talking about, that's what everybody's hearing. There he's going to just get petted over there. Kamala's going to win, guys. Kamala is going to win.
Say that again and you're fired. Aaron, go ahead.
I think what the government would have done differently is they would have had to concoct a competing narrative. Because there's no way, regardless of what it's on Thomas Matthew Crooks's social media or lack thereof, no matter what's on there, which political leanings he kind of foisted upon his minute or very small audience, he still took a shot at Donald Trump. You can't compete with that narrative. So the government would have needed to concoct a competing narrative, okay? They would have needed to do something like the following week, do like a coup against the sitting, incumbent president. Oh. Never mind.
Let me run down this chain of events. Go ahead, Todd. Were you going to say something? Go ahead.
Aaron, well, if we can't take advantage of this news cycle, we can't take advantage of any news cycle.
This is what we know. What I'm about to run down for you is what we know. There are no radio recordings of the event of the events of that day from Secret Service. What I've dubbed the Math Club shooter, he flew a drone over a secure airspace on the day of shooting. There are some reports now that he flew this drone for up to 11 minutes. How would they know that he flew a drone over 11 minutes unless they... Anyway, the Math Club shooter flew a drone over a secure airspace on the day of the shooting. We shut down large sporting events for unauthorized drones. I've been at them when that's happened. Math Club shooter was seen shimmying up a wall with a rifle. The Math Club shooter was able to negotiate a sloped roof deemed too dangerous for trained law enforcement and security. Trump was denied extra security. Somehow the Math Club shooter was able to get a clean line of sight less than 150 yards away, but a police sniper was able to take him out after he shot at the former president, of course, from over 400 yards away, which means they had some form of a secure perimeter at least three times the length of how far away the Math Club shooter was able to get from Trump. How was he able to penetrate that? How is that even possible? The Math Club shooter had a phone that the FBI struggled for days to unlock. He was apparently the only Gen Z male in America with little social media profile. Even yesterday's testimony had completely contradictory information about his social media. One, they originally said it was for political violence and anti-Semitism, and then under questioning from Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, admitted that he also had a whole bunch of left-wing talking points as well. So we still don't even have the full narrative of that. And this assassination, again, was 18 days ago. 18 days ago. Stop. Let me pause for a second and interject this. On March 1st, 2020, you had no idea that the world was going to get locked down. And most people still had not even heard of COVID-19 coronavirus. By March 16th, our way of life was at an end, or at least on pause, and we weren't sure that it wasn't just completely at an end. That fast, over a novel coronavirus, shut the entire world down. We had a guy nearly kill the former and still likely next president of the United States. And 18 days later, we still can't even get our story straight on what his motivations were. Acting director of the Secret Service showed the Senate the vantage point security had of the math club shooter and points out there was no excuse for how close he was able to get and how he wasn't taken out beforehand, and also points out the sloped roof was not very sloped. I know we have this talking point here on the right, the smart set. Don't attribute to malice what incompetency could explain. Well, I'll say this again. You can shove that puppy right up your Pete Buttigieg dedicated sphincter hole, and I hope it comes out to the point that you puke it up the other end. Because I'm going to ask again, based on everything I just laid out, these are all facts. Facts. If they were purposefully trying to kill Donald Trump, or at least permit it, let me ask again, guys. What would they have done any differently than what I just laid out?
Nothing, but the Matrix doesn't care. The Matrix just spits that out and plays Megan Thee Stallion and lets you wear your friend medallion. I'm honestly, man, that's every day that goes by with this thing, we have to reconcile the fact that we are in the dystopia. It's not over there. We're all the way at the bottom of that slippery slope, man. I mean, the other side knows. Why do you think they're playing Megan Thee Stallion? Again, your point is dead on. Not because of
I don't even know what Megan Thee Stallion is. I literally don't even know who.
Not because of ignorance.
Because
they know how programmed we are. They know we can't be bothered. We know we hate being citizens. They know how badly we want autopilot.
Well, the bottom line of what you just said is, I even if you believe Trump is still going to win, and I do, she's going to get at a bare minimum. Like this would be if she went out in the debate and Biden'd. That level of face plan. She's still going to get 45% of the popular vote. That's like if she's everything that we are claiming she is, and she shows it to the American people. That many people are so... I mean, listen, 40% of Floridians in 2022 said we would have preferred to have been locked down and further drugged and masked. Wow, this was too much freedom. We didn't like it. So nationally, those numbers are going to be higher. I mean, at a minimum, just by virtue of being a non-senile leftist, this many people have been worked over by what's happened culturally in academia, pop culture, and media, that she'll get at least, to Todd's point, she'll get at least, even if she's as terrible and cringy as we all believe, and she is, she's getting at least 45% of the popular vote just by showing up, which means we're talking about, what's that, 65, 70 million Americans are going to vote for that, regardless of how cringy, unqualified, ridiculous it actually is. Aaron.
Yeah, this month, we are now the last day of July, which simultaneously feels like it went on forever and got over with in a blink somehow. Maybe this is hyperbole. Maybe this is recency bias. I don't think that it is. But this could have been, should have been, is one of the most consequential months in U.S. political history, at least of the last 100 years. And yet, like everybody, to your point yesterday, even our media is just kind of moving on, just kind of slogging on. Yeah, there's some hearings. Hearings in the House, hearings in the Senate. A hearing for me, a hearing for you. You get a hearing, you get a hearing.
Yeah.
Nothing consequential is happening Guys, in the span of a week, we came within 1 inch of the presumptive nominee getting his head blown off on live television, and then a silent coup for which we still don't know the details leading up to it. What happened to Joe Biden in Las Vegas? And yet everyone, I know I'm supposed to expect this from our media. I know I'm supposed to. But it goes back to what I talked about in the morning after, or the Monday after the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. None of this is surprising, but it's still shocking to see the sausage get made. Everyone is acting like this is totally normal. We just had a silent coup, like everyone is acting like this is totally normal. We had a silent coup the week after the week after Donald Trump nearly got murdered on live television. And it's like nothing is happening. A month ago, Elon Musk had this amazing montage that he shared just a month ago of like everybody in the media, Democrat industrial complex, talking about how Joe Biden is as sharp as a tack. That was a month ago. And now we are Megan Thee Stallion in Atlanta with Kamala. It's just confounding. It is chaos. It is everything that we've talked about on this show right now. It's like we have grown numb to the chaos. Like that is the new normal. And that's not a good sign.
What you're saying, Aaron, what you're saying is, and I'm not going to get to it now looking at the time. This is why I just can't get that invested in the Project 2025 inside baseball stuff. And it doesn't mean it's irrelevant, but that's kind of your typical campaign. This is, Project 2025 is this cycle's Mitt Romney won't eat the chicken sandwich, basically. Okay. We've seen that kind of stuff, in politics a million times. And I just frankly, I had to begrudgingly do some checking and talking around with some of my people that I know about it yesterday, just because the story just won't die. But to me, it's like it's the political version of set your feet. We just had a coup.
Yes.
We just had a near assassination, and
yes.
We're going to discuss the inside baseball of who's running the transition team for an election that we're not even sure how the ballots are going to get counted or who's going to be counting them in the decisive states. I just don't feel like I have this luxury. I'm looking at this clip that the Blaze just put out from Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, talking about Vance and Donald Trump. Quote, "We've never seen anything of their likes in American history," unquote. That is code for don't miss next time.
Yeah.
Now, that's essentially what it is. Don't miss next time. Okay? Don't miss next time. I mean, I just feel as if I'm not afforded the luxury of typical political analysis, given what we are seeing. Given what you just pointed out. And the gaslighting you're seeing with Kamala Harris right now. I even predicted this weeks ago. And even still watching it occur, watching Morning Consult come out with a poll yesterday that has Kamala Harris winning Michigan by 13 points. Now, I'm very dubious that Gretchen Whitmer will let you get out of there with a win. But Kamala Harris isn't winning Michigan by 13 points any more than Joe Biden was going to win Wisconsin by 18 points. That's why we got rid of the poll jar. It's very clear. Same psyops with polls that we saw in 2020. We're just going to re-rack those again, and we're going to have to deconstruct those in 2024 like we did in 2020. And so I would love to spend 15 minutes, telling you what I know about the origin of Project 2025 and what I think is likely going on with the Trump team here. But the reality is Trump is so mercurial, it is almost as likely that if he wins the day he takes over, he installs Project 2025 and just calls it something himself, as that he never does it. As Alex says, it's the weather. Very mercurial. And if you find yourself reacting to everything Trump says, you're just going to drive yourself insane, okay? But that notwithstanding, the acting director of the Secret Service, we just played a clip, could not tell a sitting U.S. senator whom it was that actually gave official answers on behalf of the agency to the press, and then couldn't explain why, if they were wrong, all these people still have jobs. I mean, I just kind of feel like we kind of need to stay parked here for right now and not just take the bait and the shiny object of, all right, let's just keep acting like we're just having a typical presidential election, and here's more, inside internecine GOP feud stuff, and we're all pissed off. I don't think that's actually what's happening here. I think that's the distraction, guys.
Of course, which is the whole point of the Matrix, but the people are the problem. Ignorance is bliss. How many people even know what you're talking about and saw this interview with the Secret Service agent? How many even care? How many the people would just give it the same excuses? That's just politics. They're all liars anyways. I think we know the answer to that. That's what we have to explode the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, it is officially football season now, and that is around the country. That is the air that a lot of people, a lot of normies breathe. Very little room in the cranium for very little else. Very little room. So whatever impressions were made this month, those are maybe some of the last opportunities to make any impressions whatsoever. That's my hypothesis anyway, to penetrate the zeitgeist of normie America. Whether it was the Biden-Trump debate or Trump holding up his fist, raising defiantly. Those are two things, if my hypothesis, that those are the only two moments that really penetrated, because it's hard. We get into the fog of war in this line of business, and those of you listening who actually pay close attention to politics and are, doing your best to take citizenry seriously, you are a sliver of this country. You really are. Now, there's still a lot of you, but if my hypothesis is correct, that those are the only two events of this summer. Maybe Kamala's rollout is penetrating the zeitgeist. It certainly is on their base, but in terms of the normie zeitgeist, Trump won in terms of mass penetration of narratives of the normie zeitgeist. I think. I don't know that for sure.
And not just normies. There's all kinds of people on conservative Twitter yesterday showing that picture, the huge crowd scene of Venezuela. Yes, taking their country back. Come on, man. You can do that too. You can show up whenever you want to. Right? They are literally in desperation right now. We still have a lot of autonomy. We could just do it as a matter of personal principle, not out of desperation. I'm not planning on that happening. People love the Matrix, especially on our side. I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. We have narcissism. We don't have principles.
It's been 18 days, and they still can't give us a cogent... From people who all they do is craft... Understand this. From people who all they do is craft narratives all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they kept a Russian collusion hoax narrative alive for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, they leveraged every platform they had. They kept that alive for 3.5 years. And we have no sustainable narrative and biography of a guy who nearly assassinated the once and perhaps likely next president of the United States. I mean, that just blows my mind. It just blows my mind.
There were never any consequences for that Russian collusion, so this is exactly what was always going to happen.
And there were never... correct. And there were never any consequences for Brett Kavanaugh. Correct. And there were never any consequences for 2020 and whatever the hell that election was. Never any consequences at all. And so whenever you don't punish wrong, you end up incentivizing it. Those are your other two options. Complacency isn't an option with evil. It takes that as acquiescence and surrender. Well, if you are tired of giving your money to people who hate you, unfortunately, you're not really going to be able to live a life as an American by avoiding that completely. We just don't have a fully developed parallel economy yet. But we would urge you on our show to take advantage of the areas where we do. And one of them is with our friends at Patriot Mobile. For a decade now, they've been America's only American mobile phone company. You can make the switch today, and I can just tell you, I've seen it firsthand. I've mentioned before, I've done 2 conferences so far this year, one in Tennessee and one back home in Iowa. Patriot Mobile was a sponsor of both of them. I can't think of a conference on the right that I've either attended or spoken at in the last 3 or 4 years, at least since COVID especially, that Patriot Mobile wasn't a sponsor there. I mean, heck, when we did our presentation at the Kevin Sorbo conference on Nefarious, it was in the hall, sponsored by Patriot Mobile. So they absolutely do take the profits that you give them and reinvest them back into your values. I've seen this firsthand. I've also seen firsthand they've got an outstanding customer service team. When you go to make the switch, they'll make it as accessible and convenient for you as possible. You can keep your phone, upgrade your phone if you want. You can switch your number, keep your number if you want. Make sure, though, that you give them the offer code STEVE when you make the switch at patriotmobile.com/Steve, because if you do that, you've got a chance there at a free month of service today. You can't beat it. A free month of service with the offer code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Again, a free month of service from Patriot Mobile with the offer code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. All right, let's get to it. It is time to play Buy, Sell, or Hold. Aaron has the submissions. You in the audience have made these submissions. Todd and I have not seen the submissions. We will see them as Aaron unpacks them for us individually in the hour to come. Todd, you and I can buy something and explain why, sell it and explain why. We can also hold if we want. However, if indeed you choose to hold, all right, then as a penalty for your self-emasculation, you have to find out what Lindsey Graham meant yesterday in the U.S. Senate when he said that he was excited for some backdoor access.
Did that really happen?
He literally said this. That actually happened. Our friend, FBI whistleblower, Stephen Friend, let me share this with you. I saw him tweet this out earlier this morning. And I'm not entirely sure that Steve knows what he was saying. But Deputy Director Abadi used the hearing to push for legislation that gives the FBI backdoor access to all encrypted technology. Unfortunately, Lindsey Graham seems inclined to agree. So, yes, Todd, if you use your hold, then you will have to find out what Lindsey Graham means by backdoor access.
Yeah,
yes.
I'll pass.
All right. Aaron, go ahead.
We will begin with G. Harmon, who says the pull jar needs to be replaced by the Christmas jar. All non-current event Christmas discussions before November are subject to a fine.
Sell, because,
well, obviously I'm a sell. Yeah.
We're both selling, but for totally opposite reasons. Steve is implying that he's threatening to move it up to October, and I'm saying you should not do this until December. So,
don't you think, though, it's just going to be Steve that basically contributes to this jar? We should put a Christmas jar out there, and at the end of the year, we divide that amongst Todd and I, and that's our year-end bonus.
You're confident I'm going to mention Christmas that many times?
Well,
yes.
We'll do like a $500 a pop type of thing.
Oh, $500 a pop. Nice. Okay, nice.
Next we go to...
Hey, real quick, we all could use a little Christmas right now, in all seriousness. I mean, going to Bronner's last weekend was good for my soul. Straight up. It was good for my soul. I'd urge everybody in this audience, maybe every year, to sometime between, say, March, after the winters wore off and Christmas is kind of now in the rear view mirror, sometime between March and like when the kids go back to school, to make a pilgrimage there and just get a little more of that light in your heart, man, and on your soul. It's therapeutic for you, I promise. I'm serious.
All right. In that vein, we go to Fetigator, who says male incursion in women's sports will not be paused until a fatality occurs.
Oh, not even then, apparently. So, sell.
I will buy that it will take something dramatic. It may not take a fatality. Let's hope that's not the case. But it's going to take something dramatic. So, Steve, what else would you consider dramatic other than a fatality? Well, guys, it wasn't called the Montgomery bus ride. It was called the Montgomery bus boycott. Okay? And this is the South, and it's hot. These are long walks to work. You know, so it's the women in these sports, we can't want them to be given fairness more than they do. We just can't. Like I've said for years, you can't, ladies, you're not going to change him. We can't want a candidate to win more than they do. And I can think of several times in my career where I felt like I wanted the candidate to win more than they do. And they, like 2020, for example, and they lost every single time. All right. You can't want the women to be given a level playing field more than they do. And it's frankly going to take women saying, we're not entertaining this anymore. We're not doing it. We're just not. Like I'm telling you right now, let's say only 20% of government school teachers nowadays are believers. That's still a lot of people. What if they all just decided, you know, we're not teaching Darwinism in the schools anymore. We're just not. We're not doing it. You have to fire us all. They couldn't fire you all. They couldn't replace you all. It does take some struggle, folks.
Yes.
It takes some risk, some perseverance. We represent a Lord whom was murdered on a tree, and that was after he was nearly tortured to disfiguration. It's, you know, and then all of his apostles were brutally murdered and executed, except for one whom they tried to brutally murder and execute on a couple of occasions. And then when they couldn't, they just shipped him off to die destitute, alone on an island in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so at some point, the possibility should occur to us that there's going to have to be risk taking involved. And this is why I don't talk about the issue very much anymore. I don't comment on it on social media that much anymore. I can't want the women to want a fair shake more than they do. And if you're going to get in that ring with that guy, and you're going to run that race with that guy, you're going to swim against that guy, then you're had. Because on some level, you're saying, this is not going to be popular, but I'm going to say it. On some level, you have made the calculation that the fulfillment of that accomplishment is at the very least of equal, if not superior importance to you than the principle at stake. And you know what? And you're going to hate hearing this, but this is coming from a girl dad, okay? That's actually the same premise that the guy who's running against you is operating from too. He's operating under the same premise. That the accomplishment, the fulfillment of the accomplishment matters more than the principle of biology. Matters more than the principle of logic and reason and reality and genetics. He's making the same, he started from the same premise. That Leah Thomas started from the same premise. It sucks finishing in 462nd place. I'd rather just swim against the chicks and win 3 national championships the next year, which is exactly what happened. He was 462nd place as a guy, and then he won multiple national championships right after that as a girl, okay? So that's his premise. And it's also why it took us 50 years to overturn Roe. We did the same thing there. Well, what if the fetus feels pain? Well, what stage of development can we kill the kid? That's the same premise the other side's starting from. Now, I'm not saying that our argument is the same. I'm not making a moral equivalency of the argument. Let me make that very clear. But we're starting from the same premise. We're reaching radically different conclusions, okay? But we're starting from the same premise. It was only when we went after bills that actually defined what life was and when life begins that we were able to then finally get Roe versus Wade overturned. We attacked the premise of their argument, okay? We didn't accept it. For 40 years, we accepted it in the pro-life movement. And it wasn't until we passed legislation that challenged their premise that we overturned their premise. The same thing applies here. If you are a female and you are an active participant against these guys, then you're starting, it's not morally equivalent, but it intellectually is. It philosophically is. You have decided that, hey, the work I put in and the meaning of this accomplishment to me matters at least as much, if not more, than the principles of biology and genetics. And so I'm going to entertain this clown show. I'm going to compete against it. Okay. I mean, I still feel terrible for you, but I can't help you at that point. We cannot beat them at their own argument. We can't. Okay? And so that's why it's going to take something drastic. And understand that anytime you challenge the conventional wisdom in a culture, it's going to sound weird. It's going to look different. Christians in early Rome were accused of being cannibals. Well, I mean, you're drinking his blood and eating his flesh. Sounds weird. Okay? Not even Jupiter asks us to do that. Okay? It sounds weird. Whenever you are a movement up against the spirit of the age, you're going to be odd, peculiar. Now, the word for that is holy, by the way, because you're going up against the conventional wisdom, and people don't want to give that up. If they did, they'd already have done so. So you have to, you're always going to be odd, weird, unconventional, challenging the prevailing wisdom and spirit of the age in any era of any culture. Always. You're always going to be. So get over that, number one. And then number two, it's going to require some level of sacrifice. It just is. I mean, there's no way you're going to argue. I don't believe I'm just going to say this right now. There is no critical mass of photos of men standing on the medal stage taking medals from women that will overturn this. It's going to require something dramatic. It always requires something dramatic. Always. All right? Taking this rabbi in broad daylight and beating him to disfiguring, and then hanging him on a tree in the middle of the afternoon so everyone walking by could see that they were making an example out of him, is pretty dramatic. That's pretty dramatic, okay? 56 dudes declaring war on the empire the sun never set upon is pretty dramatic. That's pretty dramatic, okay? The Emancipation Proclamation in the middle of a civil war that you're still not even sure you're going to win. Pretty dramatic. That's pretty dramatic. It always takes something dramatic. Always. And so the only way out of this is you have to want your principle more than the people who are challenging your principle want theirs. And as long as you're willing to say, yes, I will also set biology and logic aside to compete with these bearded ladies, you're not going to defeat them, I promise you. It sucks. I know it's not fair. We live in a fallen world, though. Fair has been gone since Genesis 3. It is what it is, and that's what it's going to take. Todd, feel free to comment on this as a young lady who is a high achievement female athlete, and you come from a family where all of your daughters, to some varying degree, are competitive and successful in these endeavors. Am I being unfair to them?
No, the only part I disagree with is the last thing. I'm sorry, it's not fair. It actually is fair. We've just convinced ourselves that we can go out and buy a friend button now, and that's what I'm taking the leap. I'm going into the breach. This is totally fair. This is life. You got to get in the game. The other side actually, it's funny. We're addicted to video games. The other side actually plays this like a game. It's like do or die kind of thing, which is why they win all the time. They're actually, these two boxers, one's from Taiwan, I think, and the other one I think is like Algeria. Not exactly woke capitals of the world, but they're just rolling in here with those two. They're going to do this. I'm paying attention. We're seeing it on Twitter, but it's not part of the normal news. They're not talking about this on NBC as progress. We're just doing this now. And I swear, even if they kill somebody like this, they're just going to be like, yeah, no, they're going to go JD Vance on this. Like, you're the weird ones. This is just how it goes now. They're past even trying to explain it, and they know they don't have to because they've had their boot on your throat for a long time, and you do nothing. This is the same. Every time Steve makes this specific issue, because it's really not about me or girl dad or daughters, to every other issue, and it's why I say Kamala is going to win. This isn't unique to this issue. We have all kinds of so-called principles, and almost if we allow this to play out for just a couple days, you find out that on our side we've got all kinds of idols that are at least as big or not bigger than those so-called principles. Of course somebody's going to die with this, but it's worse than you think. It's not going to stop it. Everybody's going to golf clap and move on. You are slaves. You are in the matrix and you like it.
You have to, I've told this story before, where the term sabotage comes from. And it comes from French workers in the early years of the Industrial Revolution, upset with subsistence slave wages. They could not afford real shoes. They had to wear wooden ones. Very uncomfortable. And they took off their wooden shoes and they flung them into the machines. The shoes were the French called them sabots. And they took off their wooden shoes and they flung them into the machines to gum up the works. There was nothing else they could do to get the business owners to listen to their complaints and demands, other than just to bring the system to its knees with a form of civil disobedience. And that's what they did. That's what the Montgomery bus boycott did. I mean, that's what Christians did to ultimately overturn the Roman Empire. This is going to require some level of sacrifice. There's just no way around that. There just isn't. And there's not meant to be, by the way. Okay? When we sacrifice for our Lord, it is a testimony, and for his word and his ways. It is the most powerful testimony we have to the sacrifice that he made on our behalf.
Yes. That's why.
Okay.
Yes.
So he wants us to do this. He wants us to do this because it's our willingness to suffer for people that hate us, for causes that don't reward us. It's otherworldly. And it causes the people of this world to look at us and say, why? Why would you do that? What's different about you? And that's then when we point to him. And I know that you're not getting this message in many of your churches, and so this even sounds weird to a lot of his people right now. I know that. And on this show anyway, we're trying to do something about that. More in a moment. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm here in Dallas the rest of the week. Todd and Aaron are back there in Iowa. And you can let us know, regardless of where you are, what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can email us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And then also, if you listen to the podcast, thank you. Please, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review if you have not done this yet. Thank you if you have. And then also hit subscribe, or on iTunes, you hit follow, and that makes it sure that every time we do a new episode, it will show up in your podcast feed every single time. And we appreciate all of you that have done that too. We also appreciate our friends over at Voice of Judah who recognize right now the harvest is plenty. But the workers are few in the Holy Land to take the gospel back to where it was born. I saw from our buddy Dave Reboy at Claremont shared with me a fantastic interview. There's an Israeli that just goes around and does on his YouTube channel and features unique things about Jerusalem, all the various religious viewpoints, cultures, etc. And he does an entire hour episode with a Messianic Jew. And the conversation is incredible. It's incredible. And here's what blew me away, though. The non-Messianic Jew that's doing the interview, he does a great job, man. He asks all the right questions. But it was clear he didn't know almost anything at all about what Christians actually believe. Like, didn't know, like, anything. And you could just see he was, like, intellectually fascinated to see this Messianic Jew who sees Christ as the fulfillment of his faith. And he's like, I have a lot of these. So wait a minute, you keep Sabbath, you keep kosher, and you can do all that at the same time. I mean, it was just, this video is insanely powerful to see. And that's just kind of an anecdotal reason why we are aligned right now with Voice of Judah Israel, because they are there, church planting in the land of Israel, discipling with the gospel, inspiring evangelism. They see that the opportunity for revival there is higher than it's ever been, especially given how young the population is, how secular it is. There's a lot of things they don't know, and this provides an opportunity to empower the Jewish people with the ultimate power of the universe. That's the gospel. So if you want to support that and help to fulfill the opportunity to bless the people of Israel, because they do so much humanitarian work there as well, go to VOJ for Voice of Judah, vojisrael.org/Steve, vojisrael.org/Steve, to learn more about their inspiring work on inspiring Israel. vojisrael.org/Steve. All right, let's continue on with some buy, sell, or hold. Aaron, fire away.
All right, we covered this a little bit in our opening segment today, but Timothy Stevens takes this one step further. Regarding the Trump shooting and Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice. It's that quote that you invoked earlier in the show. Hanlon's razor is not just wrong in this context, it's wrong, period. God doesn't say we humans are stupid. He says we're evil, that our hearts are deceitful and desperately wicked. We make mistakes on occasion, but we are evil by default.
Well, on one hand, we are compared to sheep very often, and they are the dumbest mammals, okay? But that is in the context of spiritually. That spiritually, without a shepherd, we are like sheep, we will go astray, okay? So, I believe in total depravity. Theologically, I do not believe in total stupidity. I do think everybody's a sinner, but not everybody is stupid. So the spirit of this, I would agree with. I've never been a Hanlon's razor guy. It's not. In fact, Todd and Aaron, you've probably heard me cite that quote more in opposition to it in the last 18 days than maybe you've ever heard it since you worked on this show or even listened to it before you came to work here. I've just never bought into that at all. I think that it is negligent. Even before I was using the term demonic as part of my daily, discussion, I still thought it was a denial of the spiritual realities that take place in our world. Okay, so I absolutely buy the spirit of what Todd is saying.
Timothy,
I'm sorry. Todd, go ahead. My bad, Tim.
I get what he's saying. I'm selling and been talking about this a lot lately, even in our Romans discussions about we are evil. And I think we're playing around pretty fast and lucid language that, again, continues to bury the fact that we are created in the image and likeness of God. We are most certainly cursed. But we are not an evil creation. And I think we all have to work to do in our conversations I don't think that's an intentional leading astray, but I think it's problematic. So that's why I'm selling.
All right, now for some whiplash. Uncontexted Dace 2 Electric Boogaloo has this Mount Rushmore of Will Ferrell movies. Elf, Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and Step Brothers.
Well, Elf is an automatic. Talladega Nights is an absolute automatic. As long as those two are there, I mean, Step Brothers is pretty good. You know what? I would put The Other Guys on there with Mark Wahlberg. Way underrated movie. Way underrated. I mean, that movie at times is absolutely brilliant. The opening sequence with Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock, where they just knowingly jump off the building, which you don't see coming at all, to their own deaths. Hilarious. So that would be most people's list, so I'll buy, but I would put The Other Guys on the list. But as long as Elf and Talladega Nights are on there, I don't care what else is on there.
What's the one? Isn't it Old School where they go back and join the fraternity? Isn't that what it's called?
Yes. That's where he goes streaking? Yes.
Yeah, that would have to be in there. I've never seen Old School, but I know my brother. I've never seen Step Brothers, but my brother says that's good. So I guess since Old School is not on there, I'll sell, but it's not a bad list.
All right. Next, we go to Brian Snyder. The spirit of the age has been building a Tower of Babel in our churches, which has allowed it to occupy so many of our institutions.
Can you put that up again?
I'm trying to figure out, what would be the context of that? Because the point of the Tower of Babel was to essentially beckon God, to say that we could get to him, we can call upon him, we can reach him on our own, and he reacts and responds to us, so that essentially the people are sovereign, if you will.
I think he means this in the context of confusion.
Yeah, I'll say buy. I'll say buy. In the most general terms, it's a buy.
Okay, I'm gonna sell, because the confusion comes as a result of what God does to them for the tower that they built. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I've got so low regard for the state of the American church corporately right now, which is why I'm here. You know, I'm here in Dallas this week because it's an opportunity to try to reach some pastors and encourage and inspire and equip them, because I really think you can tell a lot about a culture by the state of its men in general, and there's no men whose state matters more in any culture than the men in the pulpit. But I have such low regard collectively for the state of the church at this point that, like somebody asked me on Twitter, AMA I did on my flight down here last night, do I think Jesus is ashamed of me for supporting someone like Donald Trump, who is such an affront to Christianity? And my response back to him is, I think Jesus is ashamed that men like Donald Trump and Elon Musk are more of a threat to the enemy than are many of the men in his pulpits. I have such a low regard for the state of the church collectively in America right now that I actually think building a Tower of Babel would be an upgrade. That would actually be some form of an affirmative theology, some form of an actual lodestar, a system, rather than just this constant meandering of nothing and platitudes and verses out of context, where the only verse out of Jeremiah the average American Christian knows is 29:11, and they have no idea what sandwiches it at all. So I think trying to build something as demonic and heinous as that is, it would actually be a more cogent theology. Like someone again asked me last night, whose preaching would you rather sit through, Joel Osteen's or Jeremiah Wright's? Jeremiah Wright's. Straight up demonic, straight up, it's much easier to deconstruct. That's why guys like Jeremiah Wright don't like flourish long form and long term. Eventually they get found out. They're too honest. Okay? It's why Bernie Sanders can't get elected and Barack Obama can. They're both Marxists, but Bernie Sanders is a proud Soviet. He wants you to know he's a Soviet. He wants that. He doesn't want to shoot baskets and be cool and sit courtside at the Duke Carolina game. It's all Soviet all the time. Okay, and so that's why he can't get elected, and Barack Obama, who's willing to do those things, is. And Joel Osteen is Barack Obama in that illustration. Much harder to confront and deconstruct. Give me the straight on, no chaser, Jeremiah Wright. That's straight on demonic. I can more easily deconstruct that. And similarly, I think trying to build a Tower of Babel would be an upgrade compared to what goes on in many American churches right now. Sad as that is to say.
Next up, we go to Michael Lovell. Regardless of who wins in November, there will be lockdowns and martial law.
Oh, I'll sell. I don't think that'll happen if Trump... Well, you know what? I'll sell. Martial law makes people shoot back. So if you wanted to just say they'll come up with something to lock us down over, that I could buy. I mean, the hardest thing was to get us to do it the first time. It's much harder. It's much easier to get people to do it the second. But martial law is what causes people to start firing back. If you can get people to lock down, why declare martial law? You don't have to. will marshal themselves. So.
Yeah.
One more thing, let me add to that too. One more thing. Because of all this stuff Todd says about comfort, they don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. You declare martial law against the people that are a threat. Okay? They don't have to do stuff like that.
You finished for me. I'm prone to being a buy based on thinking that the government can and will do whatever it wants to. I'm open to it on that. But then I was thinking, what's going to win out, that or what Steve just said, the fact that we're just so placid, it won't even, it won't be necessary again. So I will narrowly err on Steve's end of things and sell.
All right, now for something completely different. Lauren says, all this computerized automation in the Olympics spoils the spirit of the games. The Olympic Games were better when human judges just watched and told us who won. If there's a 6-way tie for first place in swimming, then it's a tie. That's the beauty of sports. Right, Todd?
I'm not sure if I'm being trolled or okay, yeah. Bye.
I don't know.
Did I understand
we've watched a fair amount of the Olympics in our household.
I've watched zero.
I feel like the things that are automated, computerized, are things that are necessary, like timekeeping. I mean, fencing is now, fencing kind of sucks. It's kind of boring. But that's computerized now. Things that are, can be objective. It's not replay review stuff. It's just things that can be objectively measured are now automated. I don't know.
So I am being trolled.
Maybe. I don't know.
Try it again. If you could, thank you.
Lauren says, all this computerized automation in the Olympics spoils the spirit of the games. The Olympic Games were better when human judges just watched and told us who won. If there's a 6-way tie for first place in swimming, then it's a tie. That's the beauty of sports.
Yeah, I am being trolled, yes. I
didn't even realize that. I didn't do that on purpose, but...
I lost... that's just... And I was checking, if there was some breaking news at the beginning, so that's why I missed the context. But it was, you're... That's a really, really stupid take. And I'm just going to be honest. Aaron laid it out in a nice way. Don't be dumb. That's you didn't have to type this out. You can have your preference in one instant replay and not say, this is dumb, and now you deserve to be mocked for this. This is why we can't have nice things. Honestly, you're not smart because of this. This is the opposite of smart. This is why your narcissism is actually what's consuming you instead of what you think are principles.
Todd, can you see the bottom?
Aaron, Todd
can you see
Todd come in a good mood this morning?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The first thing I asked him is whether the Industrial Revolution was a mistake, and he was like, yeah. Can you see what's on the bottom monitor over on Steve's camera thing?
Yes.
Aren't you proud of me?
That's the guy. I'm glad Steve can't see it.
Moving on. Data Mask says anonymous Twitter accounts wielding a lightsaber with unset feet are more likely to hold the executive branch accountable than Congress is. I love this take.
Wow.
Bye.
Man.
That's 100% true.
See, that's a smart take.
We've got open borders, crime, and they're taking a 7-week recess, man. Okay? So, yeah.
See?
Bye.
I'll buy. An army of toy lightsabers. My kingdom for one.
Next, we go to Matthias Nielsen. If we lose in November, everyone affiliated with the Trump campaign and MAGA from Susie Wiles to Trump himself needs to be shunned from our movement permanently. There's no excuse for losing these elections.
Well, sell, because we don't have a movement. We don't have the power to shun anything. That's why this is all happening. I mean,
what movement?
I know.
I don't even want to contemplate this. I don't even want to think about it. I'm just going to tell you, if they blow this, I'm going to lose my shit, and everybody just needs to be ready for it. Okay? If they blow this, if they can't beat her, I'm going to lose my chit. It's going to happen. Just be warned.
Well, there will be nothing left to do.
However you thought I didn't take well election night 2022 will pale in comparison to how I'm going to take this. Okay? I'm going to lose my chit-chat. Just prepare yourself. That's why it's not going to happen. And that's why people will get fired for even intimating that it could. And I don't want to entertain it. And we're not going to discuss it. And we're not going to even think such things because we don't have to worry about that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Until Aaron's montage tomorrow.
It's not.
See, I'm in a good mood.
It's not happening, guys. It's not happening, guys. It's not. It can't happen. It's not happening. I mean, if you can't, hey, they nearly assassinated me, and I got rid of. They gave me a dementia opponent, and then they gave me another dementia opponent. Okay, no. But just in case it does, just in case, it's not going to happen. I'm not even contemplating that it could. But just in case it does, everybody needs to be warned. I'm going to lose my chit. Just be completely warned. That's all. It won't happen. It won't. But just in case it does, I won't take it well.
Is this one of those emotional hedges I've heard about?
It won't happen. It won't happen. We're good. We're good. It's just, but just in case. I'm not going to take it well, just in case.
Next.
You know what? Let's get a palate cleanser in here and talk about our friends at Freedom Chamber, if you don't mind, Aaron. Because they are also trying to help us to build the parallel economy that we need with the Pro-American Business Network. Particularly if you're a small or medium-sized business owner and you want to network in an alliance with other like-minded business owners that share your values, know that you're not alone. Triple braided cord is tougher to break. There's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. All right. This is the network that you want to join. It is the Pro-American Business Network, regardless, all across all commercial sectors. And the mission is to promote values while fostering the growth, sustainability, and success of member companies, to what American commerce used to be, essentially. All right. So you can join today at freedomchamber.net. That's freedomchamber.net. Get some comprehensive support, robust resources, exclusive networking opportunities. Join today at freedomchamber.net.
Sturdy Oak is next to truly complete the new studio. It needs a large painting from Doug Giles' Biblical Badass series. And included here, for those of you listening, is a painting titled Elijah Executes a Prophet of Baal. It depicts Elijah with a large axe about to behead a prophet of Baal. Do we need that in our studio? Buy, sell, or hold?
I need that in my life. Not just the studio. I need that in my life.
Is it?
I've got believers on my Facebook page right now telling me it's unbiblical to mock evil. Apparently, they've never heard the story of Elijah either, because before he beheaded a bunch of them, he mocked their fake demon god, who was unable to respond to their prayers because he was busy taking a dump on the toilet. Okay, so again, my regard for the current systemic state of the church in America, guys, is... So yes, I buy.
Sure.
We've got a top 10 from Tiny Johnny. Top 10 new Summer Olympic sports for 2028. Number 10, Christian archery, where they shoot at Christians.
Oh, my gosh. Buy. I mean, we've seen all this before. Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun. Sure, you bet.
Yeah, this is taking place in Los Angeles, by the way. Number 9, fencing on fentanyl.
Yes.
Oh, my word. Oh, my.
Number 8, Greco-Romans 1 style wrestling.
I like that. Bye. Yes.
Number 7, 100-meter hurdle dildos. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. That's news to me. I got to sell. I don't know.
Number
Todd,
6.
your thoughts?
Number 6, bug eating competition.
Yes.
Yes. You would eat the bugs. Yes.
Number 5, drag queen racing.
Yes.
Bye.
Number 4, handball with hands on balls.
I don't know what those are. I got to sell.
We're going to skip number 3 because I have no idea. It's just...
Okay.
Number 2.
That's a good idea.
Diving for boys. And number 1, synchronized sodomy.
Yep. The Matrix accepts. The Matrix accepts. Tiny Johnny understands the programming. But Steve's being criticized by our own audience right now for being too harsh on evil. So, yeah. It all fits.
Why not?
I can't wait to win this election. I cannot wait to win this election. Can't wait to win it.
Aberration has this interesting take. Sciatic nerve pain is the natural law's way of telling us we're living too comfortably.
Yeah.
Just on a personal basis, I will buy this.
Yeah.
Because I had some major sciatica. Major. Like probably a year after I moved down here. And it was helped by chiropractic visits, but then exercising. Like, I couldn't feel my leg.
Yeah.
It was debilitating levels of pain.
The amount of time the average American spends sitting is objectively unnatural. Absolute buy.
So I was about 400 pounds and on my way to my first radio interview at Sports Radio The Jock for a full-time job. And I had to get gas on the way there. I stopped to get gas. I slip and fall on the ice and damaged my sciatica so bad that it required a cortisone shot in the rear end just so I could get up and walk and everything else. I had all kinds of these problems for many, 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 many years until, because, your back gets better as you get older, right? Well, how did this get better where I'm concerned? I stopped being 400 pounds. How do you get to be 400 pounds? You're way too comfortable. That's how you get to be 400 pounds. So I'll buy.
Next up, we go to Bacon. Kamala's support is real because the Democratic Party is run from the top down and party members follow orders and do what they're told. The intensity of that support, however, is unknown and will decide the election.
I think that's a good description. The intensity is known. She is a limiting principle. Doesn't mean she can't win. I'd give her about 35% odds right now to win, because but her potential is limited. Her floor is high, though, because of what is said here, and that would be true of almost anybody as long as they weren't senile that the Democrats nominated. Okay, and so I'll buy, but I think we're understating what. How much a fraud this idea that she is an instant phenom is. That's a fraud. The idea that Democrats are now back united on a unified message, not a fraud. But the idea that she is now some, fixture of the zeitgeist, that's a fraud. But in general, this is correct, so I'll buy.
Yeah, me too.
Next, we go to Martin Parks. The pitch of Steve's greetings at the beginning of each episode is a barometer of how well our team is doing in the culture war. When we're winning, the pitch is higher. The pitch has been low of late.
I
think it is a barometer of your overall mood. I do think that.
It can be. It can be. My mood's actually been pretty good, since I got back from Bronner's, particularly. But as a general rule, that you don't have to typically wonder where you stand with me. I'll buy that, sure.
What do you really mean?
You'll know
by that. Todd, your thoughts?
I'm selling because we know what
yes
we think about. I don't like your tone conversations. This is a tonal argument.
How about this from Uncommon Sense? Kamala was genuinely surprised to hear Barack and Michelle on the same phone call for her endorsement.
I like that. I just like it.
Oh, wow, you're together.
Yes.
I like it too. I doubt it's true, but I want it to be.
Yeah.
Not quite as much as I wanted that Chris Christie used to do McNugget runs for Trump at midnight. Okay. I needed that to be and wanted that to be as true as almost anything I've ever encountered in my life. All right. But I need that on a lower level. I need this to be true. I love this proposition, so I'll just buy it out of sheer desire.
Yep.
Next, we go to Steve Senni. Barbecue entrees, sides, and desserts. These are the best barbecue items. Number 1, pulled pork. 2, smoked brisket. 3, smoked chicken. 4, smoked sausage, unless you're Lindsey Graham, when it's always a number 1. Okay? Sides, grilled corn. 2, baked beans. 3, mac and cheese. And desserts, smoked pecan pie, smoked s'mores, and 3, smoked banana pudding. I can't testify to most of these items, especially the dessert items. But generally speaking, I'm tracking with Steve. Smoked baked beans. Yes.
I'm in.
Please.
Now, I love burnt ends. I love burnt ends. Okay? But as long as, if you've got brisket and pulled pork, I almost don't care what else is there as much as I love burnt ends. With you on the sides. Now, the thing with pecan pie is, to me, it's never just okay. Like, you can eat a piece of pumpkin pie and it's okay. You know, pecan pie is either done really well or not at all. Okay, I mean,
and that's on both sides of the spectrum. It's either no taste or way too sweet, in my estimation.
Which is why I love it, and that's why I love it when it's done well. Yes, for that very reason. Yes, but I like this menu for sure. I'll buy.
I'm gonna sell only based on the list goes too deep. Like, that's why there's so many. Barbecue is a more chill food than a hard and fast list. Just relax and have a beer and enjoy your barbecue.
How terrible of a mood is Todd in? Your barbecue list is too detailed. Sell. There's too many options.
If we're getting down to banana pudding, I'm just like, relax, have a cocktail. It's all good. Enjoy your barbecue, man.
Todd thinks
I would relax and have some banana pudding, actually. But yeah,
Todd thinks the song "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails and Johnny Cash
is a lullaby.
Is way too optimistic.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said about me.
Bye.
I hurt myself.
This is potentially the most. This is potentially the most Catholic show we've ever done. Buy or sell.
All right, we've got a few more submissions. We'll get to those in the overtime.
When we come back, Daniel Horowitz will join us, the prophet of, well, do we need any more woe and lamentation after what Todd has brought to the table? We'll see when we come back. Well, as we lament the current sad, sorry state of all too much of our university system, let's make sure we celebrate the remnant that is still walking that narrow road, including our friends at Hillsdale College. They have been celebrating Independence Month here in the month of July, and they're doing so by offering you an inspiring portrayal of Thomas Jefferson as he looks back and reflects upon the Declaration of Independence and a letter that he wrote late in his life. You can watch this inspiring video and also get a free commemorative copy of the Declaration of Independence as well from our friends at Hillsdale. When you go to daceforhillsdale.com, again, that's dace4, the word for, okay, F-O-R, not the numbers, the letters, F-O-R. daceforhillsdale.com is where you can go to see this and then also get your copy of the Declaration. But don't delay. This is a limited time offer. You can do that today, right now, at daceforhillsdale.com. Let's bring in the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, although I have to tell you, for the last hour and a half, Todd has stolen quite a bit of your thunder, Daniel. So you have a high bar of woe and lamentation to clear. But here, let's do this. How much are you buying these polls that are just all over the place right now? How much are you buying them?
I'm not buying the polls. I'm buying the results of an uninterrupted winning streak of Democrats in every critical race in Arizona, Georgia, except for Brian Kemp, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and particularly Michigan since 2017. So I don't vacillate in the wind like a listless vessel. I have a thesis, and unless something shows that it's not true, I stick with it. And my thesis has been the same since Republicans lost the 2022 elections. And that was that, namely, just hoping the Democrats implode on their own is not going to work. Something needs to change. It is bizarrely a pro-Democrat environment to various degrees. The only thing shielding that was this narcotic, this political fentanyl for about a year and a half about Biden's personal polling, which was always a jujitsu for the Democrats to reset the race. So I don't believe it's so much a honeymoon for Kamala as it is resetting to what it always was before Biden officially collapsed.
Okay. And give our audience a couple of examples of what you think you are seeing, that there is some form of a pro-Democrat environment out there.
Sure. So one thing is, I have yet to see a single race. And remember, it's not like we go to sleep for 2 years and don't have elections in critical places. Now, special elections often have unique, quirky, qualities to them. But you look at the aggregate of them, and typically when you have an unpopular Democrat in the White House with a lot of economic melees, foreign policy, national security problems, typically the other party has more enthusiasm and wins those or overperforms in those special elections. As you well know, Steve, we have seen the opposite. I have never seen any evidence of look at the polls the entire time. In fact, even if you want to go with the polls, even with Biden on the ticket, even after the collapse, Democrats had shocking resilience. I'm saying if you take those same polls, Democrats pretty much were winning the Senate races in those critical states. I mean, I think it's pretty clear when you look at Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. Okay, those 4 Senate races, Democrats are running away with them. I think that's pretty hard to deny that. And the question should be why?
All right. Why? Why do you think that is?
What is self-evident is that there is something stopping those critical voters, however you splice them, and there's a lot of overlap, suburban married women, independents, about a 5% deviation. There's something blocking them from voting Republican, despite the fact that in every poll they will tell you they don't like what's going on in the economy, foreign policy. In fact, it's become so pronounced. I've never seen this before. You will have the same poll show, Trump somewhat behind Kamala, but a referendum on Trump's presidency in his first term, right? Do you approve of Trump's first term? And there was a poll recently, I'm trying to remember which one had it, at 56%. Because the contrast is obvious. I mean, you can't deny it. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? It's just clear, and that needs to be the relentless message. But yet still, it doesn't translate over. And I think it doesn't translate over for 2 reasons. It's number one, Democrats, they broke our elections, and even without full cheating, I would argue they cheated to change laws. But once it's like that, Republicans have not matched their early voting ballot gathering game. And number two, there clearly is an image problem. The analogy I use on my show is if you have 2 people come before the public for a debate and one walks into the session buck naked. Now you could have whatever arguments you want and the other person could be absurd, but there are going to be people that just cannot look past what their eyes are seeing. And, that's a reality. We could shoot down.
And and you think this explains why what we saw in 2022 is the issue polling was very much in our favor, but the horse race polling always indicated that it was closer than it should have been given the issue polling, and we're seeing a repeat of this. So you basically are saying there is some branding of the Republican Party that is tarnished to the point that even wide issue agreement just will not necessarily equal getting enough normie support to win a critical election or critical mass in an election. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's pretty obvious. And I am shocked at how there has been no introspection about that after 2022. It's like it never happened.
I want to talk a couple of issues that I think you're uniquely qualified on top of the ones I just asked you about. But given your background, your heritage, I think you're uniquely qualified to talk about these issues. Number one, speculation is mounting with Kamala saying she's going to announce her running mate in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, that she is going to pick the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. I mean, why would you she is Kamala. Could she go to Pennsylvania and say, hey, guys, here's the senator from Arizona? Maybe. Okay. But this is, to me, I think this is a high-risk, high-reward gambit if it is him. I think just in terms of straight-up electoral politics, that's the worst choice for us that she could make. It makes the path for Trump to 270 harder than it already is, obviously. But it also risks exposing, it's a gambit on their side too, because it would risk exposing nefarious elements of their party. We could see repeats of scenes like we saw on college campuses, but now it's happening at their convention in Chicago. And that stuff does turn off a lot of normie voters as well when they're exposed to it. So your thoughts, if indeed they do put a Jew on the ticket with Kamala, and what that would mean given the surge of anti-Semitism that you're seeing on the American left right now?
So, look, the fact that we're speculating this demonstrates the difference between today's Democrat Party and even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, he would have been the perfect candidate because he's a leftist communist, but it evinces this sort of moderate image when he's not. And he actually, he's called Netanyahu all sorts of names. You always want the token liberal Jew to dump on Israel, which he's more than happy to do. But the current Democrat Party, it's just like, you're Jewish. I mean, that's a problem. So, that's the difference in nuance. They used to like. I mean, John King
said out loud on CNN last week, there's no way they can go with Josh Shapiro. He's a Jew. Just said it out loud on national television.
Yep. No, I mean, they would need a lot of security in Chicago at the DNC convention, and it's not going to be from right-wingers. There's no question about that. But I think overall, I don't think you could count on the normie voters voting based on the ricochet of some base Democrat voters' reaction to the candidate rather than their perception of the candidate himself. And the reality is, Steve, you have said it more cogently than anyone else when you endorse DeSantis. And I don't say this to look backwards, but more to strategize looking forward. Believe me, I don't want Hamas to win this election. And, we got to do better. But the reality is you made the point that Trump is a spent force. Okay, he's 78 years old, was never really popular with the critical voters since 3 to 6 months after he was elected. And we've had an uninterrupted stream of losses since then. You are coming into an election with someone like that from day one. We always knew they would swap out Biden, which they did. You get, Kamala, we think of her as not a fresh face and should own the entire melees of this admin, which we need to work better to make her own. But at the end of the day, she was in the shadows. Most people haven't heard much about her. You pick someone like Josh Shapiro, it's a much fresher image. I mean, in large degree, the reason why Trump was able to win in 2016, despite kind of breaking the rules, like, a guy like that shouldn't be able to be elected, which Kamala sort of is now, is because Hillary was what? Hillary was a spent force. She ran and was defeated 8 years prior. She was co-president in the 90s. People had enough of her. Meaning,
too well known, cannot redefine herself if she tried. Exactly. It wouldn't come across as real. It'd be contrived.
And we need to consider that. We need to consider that. I'm not saying
we do
100%.
But we also just had an event where if there was ever an opportunity for Donald Trump to reinvent himself, nearly getting assassinated was it. And there is a window here where he can demonstrate more 100%. Empathy and have it come across as genuine, because I literally just took a bullet to the face for the country, and he did. That happened. We all watched it. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this. The Blaze has just tweeted out video where that is coming to light now, where you can literally see the shooter is crawling
on the roof
on camera. Yeah, you can see him crawling on the roof, and you can folks, take your Hanlon's razor and slit your own throat with this. Okay, I'm done with Hanlon's razor, and I never was a believer in it to begin with. But back to this point, this would be a moment to demonstrate other facets of his persona that the American people do not know, because he has an opening to do that, right?
It's sort of like when the power goes out in middle of a summer heat wave, thunderstorm, and then suddenly it comes on. Just that normal comfort feels like it's the greatest relief, even though you're just resetting to par. The Democrats are experiencing that now. After being saddled with a dead body for a few years, having Kamala is reinvigorating them. But like you mentioned, Trump does have that opportunity precisely because he's been so off kilter. If he were just to get a little bit more disciplined and a little bit more presidential, that in itself would be able to reset the race to a certain extent. I've always advocated, my view is they should cancel the August recess, focus on every aspect of the border every day. You'll never get a better issue, better timing than that. I think Mike Johnson, he could do this. He could invite Trump to give a speech like he just did to Netanyahu before the House. If Dems don't want to show up, that's great. And outline in a presidential fashion, which, we saw this when he was president, when Stephen Miller would write a speech and he'd stick to it. It was delivered very well. I think this is the sort of thing, what needs to be done. He could take out any campaign innuendo so he doesn't, have, House rules violations, but I'm sure he could do that. There's a lot of things that need to be done, but Steve, what needs to be done is we got to make a play. You cannot employ a run out the clock scenario with the dynamic that we're facing now. And I'm not coming from a week and a half of polling. I'm coming from 6 years of uninterrupted results.
Not to mention, nothing was done to interrupt or confront their ballot harvesting scheme in any of these Rust Belt states at all. We're going to get killed in ground game. We are. That's just unavoidable. We need to hope that the Trump belief that in the social media era, you win elections at the meta level, that you win with air forces and not infantry. We have to hope that's correct, because on the ground, we're going to get slaughtered on the ground. That's just going to happen. All right, before we move on, I want to ask you about one more thing. But first, make sure you check out Daniel's podcast at Conservative Review. It's a must listen. You can also check out, if you are struggling in these topsy-turvy times with making sure your family stays on that narrow road, you can also check out the Jim Daly podcast with Focus on the Family. You're talking about a ministry that has earned decades of trust and support in helping equip families to live out their faith and apply it. And even more so in this negative world of post-Christian America that we live in today, these kinds of resources are even more valuable. So you can connect with Jim Daly every day as he connects you to biblically sound advice on marriage and parenting, and in a way that's relatable and practical and genuinely interesting. You can get the podcast right now at FocusOnTheFamilyWithJimDaly.com. That's FocusOnTheFamilyWithJimDaly.com is where you want to go. FocusOnTheFamilyWithJimDaly.com. All right, I've got a minute and a half, Daniel. Israel now is racking up some big dubs of the terrorist infrastructure in the Middle East. How much of this do you think is they're taking advantage of a window here, with Biden clearly now a lame duck, Kamala, meaning that the American foreign policy apparatchiks that are the Hamas simps are kind of scattered and confused right now, and Israel is basically saying, you know what? You're right. So we're going to take advantage of this and take some of the trash out.
Look, there's no question. This is what Republicans should have been doing while they were making that vulnerable transition politically. And I think they're taking advantage of it first. I mean, I think just, Proverbs, when the wicked perish, their song. And I think it's something we often don't merit to see justice in our lifetime, because the next world is where the main justice is. So, to see the number one Hamas dude, number two Hezbollah guy, and now it appears the number one IRGC commander in Syria taken out within 24 hours. It appears that the missile might have come from within Iran. Pretty extraordinary stuff. Clearly, it's hard to imagine they had a coincidental window just within those few hours. So I think that lends credence to a political timing strategy here. There's no doubt that they're in chaos with Biden not in control, but Kamala not completely in control. But at the same time, my other thought is you know this, Steve, and it's not a joke. It's not funny. The State Department is on speed dial with the Iranian, Bullah Bros today. Like, hey, how do we strike back against Israel? Trying to coordinate. I mean, that's what we have in charge of our government. We need to either get rid of it or find a red state insurance policy to shield ourselves from it. So it's July. Let's not be caught flat-footed like 2022 again. We got to do something, make a big play to change something. What is that? And that's my challenge to our colleagues.
All right. Good to see you, brother. Thank you.
Take care.
You bet. Todd and Aaron, your thoughts on what you just heard before we sign off here today, quickly?
Well, he understands why I'm in a bad mood. You know, there's just something, I don't know what it is about our side that isn't resonating. We keep saying God will not be mocked about things like the Olympics. Our side mocks God all the time. How about we start with us? There's a big beam in our eye.
Aaron.
Gotta get out of here.
Romans 8:28. Aaron says we have to go right this minute, right now. Right now! Have to get out. Romans 8:28.